Most people don't realize that grief can happen outside of the loss of life. You can grieve a job, a promotion, a project, a dream that never happened. And when that grief goes unrecognized, it often gets mistaken for burnout, exhaustion, or simply needing to try harder. A follower, RB, recently asked me, how do I know if I'm grieving or just sad? And I think this is one of the most important career questions that we can ask ourselves because most people don't realize that grief can happen outside of the loss of life. You can grieve a job, a promotion, a project, a dream that never happened. And when that grief goes unrecognized, it often gets mistaken for burnout, exhaustion, or simply needing to try harder. Hi, I'm Laverne McKinnon, and this is Moonshot Mentor. If something at work changed that you really, really didn't want to change, I am so sorry, and I am glad that you found your way here. This is where we talk about what happens at work and how to figure out what comes next without feeling like you're throwing a lot of spaghetti against the wall. So let's talk about the difference between sadness and grief and get Arby's question answered. For full transparency, it took me 10 years to realize that I was grieving a professional setback, mostly because I didn't know that there was grief that wasn't related to the loss of life. I thought that someone had to die to have permission to mourn. Ironically, a part of me did die when I lost my job, but it never occurred to me that I could call that grief. That distinction between sadness and grief is the depth of attachment. The deeper you're attached to something, the deeper the sadness when that person or that place or that idea or that thing is gone. Sadness is a feeling. Feelings hold important information and they're fleeting. They come and they go as much as my teenage daughter. I think of grief as sadness attached to something that really, really mattered. What's maybe most important for you to understand is that unprocessed grief doesn't just go away. It oozes. Like when you open your sunscreen tube after a flight and the cream just starts pouring out. Now, sadness doesn't usually ooze the way grief does. You can feel sad that a project lost funding, a deal fell through, or a promotion didn't happen. Now, that feeling, it may sting, but eventually it goes away. Grief is different because it's rooted in attachment. It's why one person can lose a project and move on to the next opportunity without any difficulty, while another person finds themselves ruminating. The difference isn't a thick skin or toughness. It's the meaning that the project carried to that individual. Maybe that project represented a dream, a chance to prove one's worth, or financial security or belonging, a vision of the future. The deeper the attachment, the more likely grief is going to show up. And when grief goes unprocessed, it has a tendency to ooze out of the tube. So symptoms that you may think are just burnout or exhaustion or malaise, they may actually be grief. Most people believe that grief is only an emotional experience, and they believe that they can manage their feelings in the workplace or in public settings, and then go home and fall apart. Well, it's not that simple because grief is also a physiological experience, and that's where the ooze comes into play. So how do you know if you're grieving or simply feeling sad? One clue is to notice whether the experience has moved beyond your emotions and into your body. In my own experience and through working with clients and also in my studies, I found that grief can leave fingerprints in the body. So I'm going to give you some thoughts around this, but this isn't a comprehensive list. These are some of the most common ways I've seen grief show up physiologically. The first, and this is truly in no particular order, sleep disturbances. Insomnia or oversleeping are not uncommon. I've had both, where I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't get back to sleep because I'm ruminating. I've also had times when I can't get out of bed or wake up. Appetite changes and gut issues, a severe lack of appetite or overeating. Once again, that pendulum, it swings back and forth. And you may also experience constipation, indigestion, or diarrhea. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but maybe I'm just validating what you're already experiencing. There are also clients who've talked about things that they felt with their heart and also with how they were breathing. Some people have said that they can literally feel their heart breaking. And so it might feel like a heaviness or an ache or racing or a fluttering heartbeat. You may also find that it's a little bit difficult to catch your breath or take a full breath. And I hear this so much, this next category, physical exhaustion, headaches, migraines, muscle stiffness, joint pain, and just an overall weariness. There's the biggest one I think that I hear most often is the complaint of that career grievers are experiencing cognitive issues. The last complaint that I want to mention here today is from career grievers, and they talk about cognitive disturbances. So things like forgetfulness, memory loss, mucking up deadlines, and messing up priorities. It's the one part of the grief experience that they have trouble hiding for longer periods of time. I share these symptoms with you so that you can check in with yourself. My intuition says that if you stayed with me this long, then you may be concerned that you or someone that you care about is grieving a professional setback and not realizing it. If that's the case, stay curious and check in with a doctor, a therapist, or a certified grief coach to get unique insights into your situation. One other thing that I feel compelled to mention is that most career advice, it glosses right past the emotional and spiritual impact of a professional speed bump. The advice typically focuses on tactics, like how to ATS-proof your resume or reach out to loose connections for job opportunities or complete an AI certification from MIT. Building your career takes energy and resources, and unprocessed grief uses up energy and resources because you're being forced to mask your pain in order to belong and look fine. So when you leap into tactics without giving yourself permission to mourn, you're also draining willpower and resiliency. So that's part of the reason why you feel exhausted, burned out, and cognitively challenged. Asking for advocacy and tailoring your resume, upping your credentials, all great things, but they're never going to stop the oozing of grief. I spent 10 years grieving a professional setback without mourning, and it cost me. And I don't want you to ever go through that. And I certainly don't want anyone to grieve a part of their career without support and guidance, because it can be scary and lonely. If any of this part sounds familiar, that's exactly why I created Solid Ground. It's a place to make sense of what's happened, name what was lost, and find your footing again. Each month, members of Solid Ground receive a short video lesson, a reflection worksheet, live coaching, and access to a growing library of career conversations designed for people navigating change, disappointment, and heartbreak. If you'd like to join us, simply become a paid member of Moonshot Mentor. Your paid membership includes full access to Solid Ground and everything inside the archive. Bottom line for today. RB, what I hope you walk away with is an understanding that sadness and grief are related, but they're not the same thing. You can feel sad about many things: a disappointing meeting, a bad day, a criticism that stings. Sadness becomes grief when there's an attachment, a dream you invested in, a role that shaped your identity, a team that felt like home, a version of yourself you thought would always exist. Sadness usually passes when the moment passes. Grief tends to linger because your mind, body, and nervous system are trying to make sense of a loss that matters. So if you've been feeling exhausted, distracted, irritable, disconnected, unable to move forward after a professional setback, don't assume that you're burned out or failing to be resilient. You may be grieving. And if that's true, the answer isn't to come up with smarter tactics. The answer is to acknowledge what was lost and give yourself permission to mourn. Okay, that's it for today. A quick thank you to Kara Langham for all of the social media support and the editing, and to Lauren Deacon for running all of Moonshot Mentor operations and watching a very careful eye on our branding. Most of all, thank you for being here. Your time is precious. I so appreciate you, and I look forward to being with you next week.